All right. Welcome back. Now, I've been talking about this for a while, going back to last year, that white males in America are really getting the short end of the stick. And maybe some say, there's all this white privilege stuff, and you got cops washing black people's feet, places where I think it's taking it a little far. But men are under attack in more ways than one, and all this talk about women's rights and racial inequality and social injustice. Nobody's really talking about what's happening to the white male guys or male guys overall, no matter what color they are. But Armin Brott is, and Armin Brott joins us right now. He's a men's rights analyst, which you need your head examined just being that in the first place. But he's also the author of The New Father, A Dad's Guide to the Toddler Years. He's been a published columnist in Men's Health, and he's the host of Positive Parenting, a weekly talk show host. Armin, thanks for joining us. My contention is that the white Anglo male has been under attack for at least the last 8 years or so. Tell us what's really happening to men in America.
Well, I think in some ways we're an endangered species. I mean,
right.
It's so common these days, and it's so acceptable to talk about, oh, men are this or men are that, or white men especially are just completely under attack. And you use the word white privilege, and I've discovered that over the past couple months that phrase, along with toxic masculinity, have become triggers for me. I get really annoyed whenever I hear them because they're just so ridiculous on their face that, I mean, if you look at the number of people in poverty, way more white people than black people are in poverty. If you look at the number of people who are killed by police officers, way more white people than black people are killed by police officers. I mean, what we're doing is we are completely and deliberately ignoring the things that are going on. I mean, some of the most horrific stuff, if you look at the coronavirus, for example, men are twice as likely as women to die from coronavirus. They commit about 80% of suicides. They commit about 2/3, 70-something percent of opiate deaths are men. And I know absolutely, because I've talked to mental health people and health department people out here in California, and they've said if it were reversed and women were the ones who were committing suicide, or women were the ones who were predominantly dying from COVID, or women were the ones who were dying from opiate deaths, we would have a major countrywide health crisis, and we'd know what to do with that. We'd throw a lot of money and a lot of resources, but it's men, so we don't really know what to do. We don't do anything.
So let me ask you this: you're rattling off those numbers. You say there's way more white people on welfare. Way more white people get killed by cops. Can you give it? What are the statistical numbers behind that stuff? Because everybody, I even do it. I just generalize stuff. What does it really look like? How vast is this?
Well, it's about, you have to be careful with these things, because I want to be intellectually honest in the way that I feel a lot of people aren't when they start throwing around numbers. So when I'm talking about more white people are killed by cops, for example, it's about twice as many. That means that black people are still disproportionately more likely to be killed by cops. But there's also the fact that black people are unfortunately, as politically incorrect as this is, they are more likely to be involved with the police or with the law enforcement system because they are committing more crimes disproportionately. And so it's roughly twice as many white people are on poverty, twice as many white people are being killed. So in terms of sheer numbers, that's a lot of people. And to completely ignore that and to say that black people are the only ones who are being killed by cops, and I want to take a step back from that, because I think that overall is I hate to say this, it's a relatively minor problem compared to the total number of people who are murdered in the black community. About 70, 80 something percent of them are killed by other black people, not cops. Cops are killing a tiny percentage. And so it's important that we understand the difference between percentages and sheer numbers, and between rates and percentages. I mean, it gets to be a little bit crazy when people start throwing around numbers and they don't know how to use them.
Let me ask you, Armin, about men's rights specifically. Why did you choose to focus your work on men's rights? How exactly are men or fathers in general, irrespective of ethnicity or race, how are they under attack in modern society, or why do you feel they need some standing up for?
Well, let me just take a step, clarify something. I try not to use the phrase men's rights because I think a lot of people hear men's rights and they think, oh, he's some sort of a crazy person. I really think of it in terms of men's health. And what's going on is, generally speaking, men die 5 years younger than women. And we die at younger ages and higher rates of 9 out of the top 10 causes of death. I think right there, that is a horrifying statistic. And I did an article a couple of years ago looking at, because I've been talking about this for a long time, and I started off the article, it was in a peer-reviewed journal, and I said, everybody knows that men die 5 years younger than women, and really nobody cares. So let's talk about how much it costs us. And I started analyzing the data and looking at how much tax revenue is lost by having all these men dying prematurely. How much is lost in excess money that we have to pay out in federal and state welfare and dependents and kinds of money that goes out to people like that, widows and survivors. And how much do we lose in workplace productivity? And it turns out it was about $450 billion a year. That's a ton of money that just to get men those extra 5 years. I'm not talking about resolving all of men's health issues. This is just to get men as healthy as women. So I think we are ignoring what's going on with men for some bizarre reason. And I think it starts with this idea that people have that men are supposed to be strong and stoic and not talk about their problems, and they aren't supposed to show any weakness. And that is something that is internalized in men from a very, very young age. We start this off with telling our little boys that, oh, big boys don't cry. And then a little bit later on, a few years later on, they do sports. And then it's, you got to get in there and play through it and tough it out. And then there's just man up that comes up. And so boys are told that they have to be tough, that they can't show any kind of weakness. They can't have needs or desires. And that leads to tremendous pressure. It leads to, with fathers, it leads to this sense of a lack of purpose in life, that they don't really realize what their role is. We keep telling men that they're bad. We talk about all this toxic masculinity garbage, and it just, men grow up, and boys and young men also get this message into their heads that there is something wrong with being masculine. There's something wrong with being male. And it's no wonder that turns into self-medication with alcohol and drugs, and that in some cases turns into a rather drastic resolution of the problem, which is suicide.
So the focus of your efforts, and I have to say I don't agree with everything you're saying, but there are no people that advocate for just men. So the stuff that you're focusing on, it's not white men or black men or brown men, it's men, right? Overall.
Well, it's men overall, but I think with the understanding that, I love this expression that the rising tide lifts all boats, that when we make men healthier, when we understand that men have unique health needs, that we are going to help everybody else. When men are healthier, they're going to be alive longer. That means more money into the tax system. It means fewer widows and orphans because their fathers were around to be there for the family. It means men are going to be more engaged in their families, which means they're going to be better role models in their communities, which means their kids are not going to grow up thinking that the way to become a man is to go off and shoot somebody or mug somebody or rob somebody or beat somebody up. When fathers are involved with families and encouraged, and that means not focusing all of our efforts on deadbeat dads and all this kind of stuff, it means helping dads get the tools and resources they need to do a good job. Families are going to be better off. So yes, I am focusing on men because I think that men have been ignored for too long, but I'm doing that because I think it's going to help everybody in the long term.
Got it. All right, we're gonna have to leave it right there. I want to thank you very much for giving this perspective. We have not had it before. I have to be honest with you.